All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lisa Partida with Home Again LA, and we have Tom Puentes with Bank of Hope. Today's topic is going to be preparing for financial disasters and preparation and recovery. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to Tom.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, so tonight's topic is disasters, financial preparation and recovery. This is actually a pretty quick topic. We only have two sections to cover. Our first section is going to be preparing financially for disasters. And our key takeaway from the section, save time, money, and stress when a disaster strikes by making the necessary financial preparations, which of course is easier said than done because when many people think of disasters, they often think of natural disasters, of course, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and we're in SoCal and fires, right? I mean, it seems like we deal with this all the time. Um, but there's other disasters that we need to consider too. Things like what would be like a something like a man-made disaster, maybe like hazardous incident. Like, oh, I can think of one. That recently in the Cajon Pass, there was a lithium battery fire out of some like train car or something. That could be one. What about like a terrorist threat too? There's a whole bunch of different ones. But different disasters can affect your finances in different ways. Cost of meeting immediate needs when there are no available from the usual sources, a disaster could affect the availability of food, water, shelter, and other basic needs. Disaster relief programs may not be readily available after the disaster occurs. The cost of repairing and replacing items, insurance and disaster relief programs not cover everything. Timing matters. You may need to cover replacement costs of some necessary items before you receive aid. Um, there may be costs associated with replacing important documents such as birth certificates, passports, and driver's license. There's ongoing cost of items that you need as a result of the disaster. These might include physical or mental health services that you require. Sometimes these services are provided for free shortly after the disaster, but eventually you're going to have to pay for them out of pocket on your own. There's identity theft issues associated as well. The disaster may have resulted in others having access to your personal financial information. You also could be the victim of scams that can target people who are survivors of the disaster. Access to financial resources. Disasters might result in the loss of identification documents. We kind of already mentioned that. But you may have lost or forgotten account numbers and access codes as a result. Debit cards, credit cards, or checks could have been lost or damaged in the incident. Even though financial institutions are going to work with you to help resolve these situations, there still might be a slight delay in access to financial resources right after a disaster occurs. Penalties or missing payments, falling behind on bills, mortgage payments, and other expenses as you recover from the disaster could happen as well. Um, so what do we do? Well, we do our best, of course, to prepare in advance for a disaster. If a disaster occurs, the government and disaster relief organizations will make an attempt to help. It may take time to get to you. They have to be prepared as well, right? They might be slow to respond. Preparing for disasters before they happen can reduce fear and anxiety. And this is great because what is one of the main stressors that we have in our lives? Finances. That's why we're talking about how we can prepare, financially for these times. Um, so ready.gov is a great place to prepare more generally for disasters. I encourage you to visit the ready.gov website. So let's consider ways to prepare financially for the disaster. Like, how can we get ready? And then keep in mind, there's absolutely no 100% way to be prepared, just like there's not 100% way to be prepared when different financial situations come up when like we're short on bills for other reasons or can't make our mortgage payment or our car payment, stuff like that. So we can't do 100% planning, but at least maybe we can get more organized, we'll say. So what are some actions? Get the insurance that you need, set money aside in an emergency fund. Some financial experts say if you don't have an emergency fund, start with $100, build it up to $1,000, then build that up to a 3-month reserve, then build that up to a 6-month reserve. Some say have your salary then saved at some point. The reason I lay it out this way is that there's steps to it. You have to start somewhere, right? Another great thing to be prepared as far as work pay is concerned, sign up for direct deposit. That way the money gets directly deposited for your payroll. Consider arranging the ability to pay some bills online or through mobile banking. That would be good too. And then keep your financial documents and information in a secure place. Insurance is super critical to support you in the event of a disaster, but you need to have it before the disaster strikes, right? Having insurance can reduce the financial impact of a disaster when you have a covered loss. It's important to have the right insurance coverage, though. So I encourage you to shop around. Consider reviewing shopping tips from state insurance commission offices. Periodically review all your insurance coverage because your circumstances might change. The typical homeowner's insurance policy doesn't cover damage caused by flood or earthquakes. And we're in SoCal. We kind of got the triple whammy: floods, earthquakes, fires. You need a supplemental coverage in addition to your homeowner's insurance to be covered in that regard. So anyway, it's a good idea to do periodic reviews to make sure that you have what you need to be covered from the insurance standpoint. Another kind of like extra thing that you can do that you'll have in your back pocket is consider taking maybe photos or inventory of the items that you have that are not easily replaceable in case you need to submit a claim, right? There's a nice website to visit, www.insuranceonline.gov, where you can download their inventory page if this is something that you are interested in. There's a whole bunch of different types of insurance. Let's just kind of cover some of the other ones real quick. Auto insurance, of course, coverages vary. For example, collision can help pay to repair or replace your vehicle if it's damaged in an accident, and you're generally required by state law to have liability coverage, which is protection in the event that you damage someone else's vehicle or property. There's disability that protects you from financial hardship when a covered illness or injury occurs. There's also life insurance, which provides financial protection for loved ones in the event that you pass away. There's also renter's insurance for your personal property against damage or loss, and can insure you in case someone gets injured on your property. And then we kind of covered homeowners insurance briefly. That's insurance for your home and personal property against damage or loss. And we kind of already mentioned that you would need the supplemental insurance when it comes to things like flood, earthquake, or fire. Uh, Sorry, everyone, I forgot to mute my phone. Okay, all good now. Sorry about that. Now, in the workshops that we do, there are apply it and try it sections. So on page 5 of the participant guide, this is something that you can check out after the workshop. But this is an exercise to understand what types of insurance do I need. And I think this is important because we're all different people. Our needs are different from each other. And not only are our needs different from each other, but remember how I mentioned that it's important to do a checkup, whether that checkup be monthly or yearly, to make sure that our coverages are in line with uh, the progress of our lives, right? This is important because it'll give you the ability to list the insurance company, the coverage limits, and the key details of the insurance that you have. And it can present a good opportunity for you to inventory it. So, what you don't see here that you'll see on page 5 is we have a snippet here of automobile insurance, why it's important. But then we're going to have the ability for you to list what it is and what the coverages are. Things that you don't see is, do you have disability insurance? Do you have life insurance? Do you have renter's insurance? Do you have homeowner's insurance? And then there's a section at the end where you're able to write in other insurance coverages that weren't listed. This is really important because not only are you inventorying what insurance you have, the coverages that you have, but now that you've made your inventory, it can allow you to shop around. And this is something that my wife and I did at the start of 2025. We kind of took inventory of where we were kind of at with our auto insurance, and we started shopping around after we looked at the coverage that we had, and we ended up switching and saved quite a bit of money. So yeah, please check out that exercise. I think it's going to be super helpful. Um, so um, set money aside in an emergency fund. We kind of already talked about this. Um, that's that idea that, and this is my opinion. I think starting somewhere is the most important because saving money is probably going to be the most difficult things that we face in our financial journeys. Just having the ability, having the blessing to be able to put $25 in a savings account. I mean, gosh, it's hard, but we kind of build those steps. That's where I said maybe we start with 100 and then that 100 grows into 1,000 over a certain period of time. And then that 1,000 can turn into a 3 month savings and then a 6 month savings. And then maybe we have 12 months of our salary saved in baby step increments, right? Now, but why? The reason why is we kind of need something to bounce back on. It's important to have that money set aside for a, I don't want to say easier recovery, but the ability to recover a little bit more easier that would give you that peace of mind to pull yourself out of the disaster that you've gone through, really. But I think the main thing is making sure that we have the mindset that we're starting somewhere, and starting small is no problem at all, really. So, again, the emergency fund, it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months of living expenses. Um, I think the most important thing to consider is making the goal reachable. Um, so make the goal realistic. If you know that you don't really have the ability to say set aside $1,000 in 3 months, make it more realistic. Can I do 500? So it's just kind of the idea of making sure that our expectations meet reality when it comes to um, our, when we can do it. Your emergency savings fund will be important for that bounce back, of course. But what about the needs immediately following the disaster, right? So it's especially important if you can't access your emergency savings fund right away, that you have the ability to pay in some other way. And what I mean by that is you may have to have the ability to make purchases in cash. You never know. Do you have any cash available? Do you have checks available? The idea being that you're kind of diversified with the ability to make payments if you don't have access to that emergency fund. We already talked about signing up for direct deposit. The nice thing about that is that you don't have to wait for the check to come in the mail. God forbid we're dealing with like a fire where we're evacuated and we don't have access to the mail. That direct deposit makes the money available in your account immediately. And then we kind of already said it, making sure that you've arranged the ability for online or mobile banking, because you may not have the ability to get to your financial institution or your bank because they might have been evacuated as a result of a disaster as well, and you can't meet in person. Um, and then keeping financial documents in a safe place and having access to them quickly and efficiently after the disaster. Um, in case of a flood, you can keep them at home in a waterproof bag, kept in a fire-resistant box, for example, or if you have a safe at home. Another thing that you can do is keep these documents at a safe deposit box at your financial institution. Some banks still in their safes offer safe deposit boxes for their customers. Um, yeah, so just make sure that you are keeping that stuff uh, safe. And then not only for the hard copy, but electronic records too, you want to make sure that all of your electronic documents are password protected and secure. That way you can make sure that you aren't so easily taken advantage of for things like identity theft and scams immediately following a disaster. Emergency financial first aid. The Federal Emergency Management, or FEMA. Uh, I'm probably You've probably heard that acronym FEMA. FEMA advises people to prepare an emergency financial first aid kit, or EFFAK. FEMA.gov includes checklists and forms to help you prepare that EFFAK. So check that out, and it'll allow you to get a better idea of what FEMA recommends to be prepared financially for, whatever disaster might happen. And the nice thing about that financial first aid kit is that it's downloadable from the website. So, key takeaway from our section one: save time, money, and stress when a disaster strikes by making financial preparations. Um, For our final section, section two, we're going to talk about recovering financially from disasters. We're going to go over actions that help with financial recovery, including actions related to your property, your home, your income, your job, bills and expenses and money, know where to get help recovering financially from disasters, and being able to spot scams that target people recovering from disasters. It's super unfortunate, but we're in a this isn't new. I was going to use the phrasing that we're in a time now where this happens, but to be honest with you, I think this has been going on for a while now. But people take advantage of people during their hardship. It's despicable, really. But we'll cover that, and then know how to start adjusting the financial picture after a disaster. So our key takeaway: develop an initial plan to recover financially from a disaster and watch out for those scams that may result. Um, After a disaster, your first priority is making sure that you and your loved ones are safe and secure, of course. There may be injuries that require immediate attention. You may need to find temporary shelter and secure food and water, batteries, chargers, or hearing aids, mobility devices, things like that, vital necessities. You can visit disasterassistance.gov for information on how to respond to or recover from disasters that may impact your community. We're focused in the workshop on steps that you can take to recover financially from disaster and address basic safety and security needs. So we'll think together, uh, what can you do to recover financially from a disaster? We kind of think about these in this five category grouping. Your property other than your home, like what would you do if your property were damaged in a disaster, right? What about your home? What would you do if your home were damaged in a disaster? What would you do if you couldn't work because you went through a natural disaster? What steps would you take to cover your bills and expenses after a disaster, both immediately and the long term? And I would put in the mid to long term. We can think, what can you do in a week? What can you do a month? What about the next 6 months? Um, yeah, so, big things to consider. Um, Property other than your home. What do we do? Uh, First, we assess and document the damage in writing and with photos. We would then contact our insurance providers about the damage that occurred, find a safe place to store cash and valuables that you took from your home, arrange for alternative transportation if you use a car or other vehicle to get to work, and it's been damaged. Find out how you can repair, replace, or borrow replacements for any assistive technology that you use that was damaged. This can include things like mobility devices, speaking devices, hearing aids, or specialized computer equipment, for example. And then what about your home? Continue making housing payments or contact the lender or landlord as soon as possible if you don't expect to be able to make your payment on time. they might be able to offer you some flexibility as a result of what you're going through, right? This is an important so that you can avoid or at least limit the negative information on your credit reports that may result if you missed a payment or were late on a payment. Assess and document damage in writing and with photos again. Contact insurance providers about the damage to your home. If you have homeowners or renters insurance, contact your landlord about damage to your home if you rent, and then get help from a Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD is the acronym, the Certified Housing Counseling Agency in your area. HUD sponsors housing counseling agencies throughout the country that can provide you with advice and other support. And the nice thing about those HUD agencies is that they're offered at no cost to you. So that's definitely something you can easily Google search that you can find in your area. Um, Another nice thing about those agencies is that they offer a lot of workshops like what we're doing now in a virtual format where you don't have to go in person, which is super nice. So what about income and job? Contact your employer to inform them about your situation. Contact your benefits provider if necessary, if you receive public benefits or pension benefits, for example, or disability benefits. Give them your new address if applicable. If necessary, you can cancel any checks that were sent to your address, since you can no longer be reached there as you're recovering from the disaster, right? Keep track of how many days of work you missed because of the disaster and how much money you would have earned. Also, keep track of how many days you're unable to live at home due to the disaster. This could be relevant for tax or insurance purposes. For example, in an insurance policy may include a loss of use provision that covers expenses you had to pay because you weren't able to live in your home. Um, Care for your service animal and repair assistive technology if necessary. Contact your disability insurance provider if you're unable to work following a disaster. Explore public benefits so that you may be eligible to receive. For example, contact your state's unemployment insurance office about unemployment benefits if you can't work because your place of employment was severely damaged in a disaster. You can also visit benefits.gov or disasterassistance.gov to get started. If there were any fatalities, you want to contact your life insurance provider so that you can file a claim. If you're a member of your household as a student, contact your school or your financial aid office to find out if there's any assistance that they can provide if you have payments to make to the college. And then what about bills and expenses? Continue paying your bills. Paying late or not at all can result in fees. Can result in fees. It could result in interest charges and damage to your overall credit score. Contact the post office and let them know where to deliver your mail. You want to make sure that you receive your bills and any important correspondence, that may be coming. Contact your financial institutions and find out if there's flexibility or any support that they might be able to offer. Contact your creditors, such as utility companies, credit card companies, and load providers. Make sure that they have your current contact information and mailing address. Discuss your situation and what flexibility they can offer on the amount and the timing of upcoming payments that you might have. And then keep records of what you spend, because as you recover from a disaster and you have receipts saved, there could be assistance programs, or your insurance company for that matter, that could reimburse you for expenses. And then access assistance programs that provide help to people affected by disasters. Shelter, food, and other necessities could be provided at reduced costs. And then protecting your money. Uh, get and review your credit report. Make sure that you haven't been the victim of identity theft, or that anyone has stolen any of your credit as a result of the disaster or just the recovery after the disaster. Contact financial institutions to report things like lost debit cards or ATM cards or lost credit cards or checks that may have been lost or damaged. Um, contact your DMV if you lost your driver's license or your state ID card, because that's certainly something that might be used against you in an identity theft case. Find a safe place for financial information, cash or any valuables that you took from your home after you evacuated. And then again, contact the post office and let them know where your mail can be delivered while uh, you're not home. Um, be proactive if you have any issues with companies as you recover from a disaster. Contact the company directly. If that doesn't produce the desired results, contact the appropriate Fed or state regulatory agency on help or guidance. On page 12 of the participant guide, um, this is a section where you're able to write down ideas that you remember from the discussion or any notes that you took when we talked about financial recovery. And this is going to be specific to you. Um, so you're able to write down property other than your home, income, job, bills, expenses, and then that protecting my money category. Um, yeah, it could be super helpful just to use that time to kind of uh, write that out. There's a wide variety of organizations that can help you recover from disasters. There's not really a single organization that's like a one-stop shop, if you will. Um, there's disasterassistance.gov. It's a website that lists disaster assistance information from federal, tribal, state, local, and private sector partners. By entering some details about your situation, you can view a list of programs and resources that might be helpful to you. We already talked about FEMA. The disaster recovery centers are also important resources to connect you to disaster recovery help. Disaster recovery centers are accessible facilities and mobile offices you can visit to learn more about a disaster. I know that we have a question in the chat. Oh, we have a link in the chat. Perfect. SBA funding in disaster assistance. Thanks for putting that in there, Lisa. That's
Hmm.
great. Yeah, SBA is a great a resource for economic development, recovery. Um, Disaster assistance organizations often hold disaster relief and recovery meetings. The meetings can connect you to important information about disaster assistance. Donations and supplies may also be distributed at these meetings. And then find out about these meetings that you might be able to attend. The FEMA disaster recovery centers are likely to know the dates, times, and other meetings. And circling back to the SBA, for example, when we went through the Los Angeles fires, not only because one of the things that we're kind of focusing on in this workshop is more of like a personal recovery. But one of the things that a lot of the financial institutions and local nonprofit and non-governmental agencies and things like that. There was a lot of meetings that were happening within the community to talk about what type of economic recovery could happen for the businesses that were affected from from the fires. So that's another whole aspect that um, we kind of don't focus on here. Um, or what happens if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner? You kind of have the double whammy in recovery because not only do you have to recover personally from this, but you also have a business that needs to recover through some type of economic development. So the reason I mention this is that there's other resources beyond that, even from maybe local nonprofits that have grants or economic assistance that can support you in recovering uh, in your small business operations, for example. Um, Financial recovery resources. Um, so as mentioned earlier, start with disasterassistance.gov. It's the central place to learn about disaster assistance loans or programs. The FEMA manages the Individuals and Households Program, which offers financial assistance to eligible individuals and households. And then, of course, and thanks again for the link, Lisa, the SBA provides low interest long-term disaster loans to repair and replace uninsured or underinsured property damaged in a disaster. They can provide these loans to businesses of all sizes, really, private, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters alike. The SBA disaster loans offer an affordable way for individuals and businesses to recover. The Department of Agriculture provides loans for the recovery of homes, businesses, and farms as well. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, the HUD approved housing counseling agencies throughout the country can provide advice on buying a home, renting, defaults, foreclosures, any credit issues that may come up. If you want to find one of these HUD certified counseling agencies, you can go to the HUD website, hud.gov/find a counselor, and you can find those agencies out there. And then watch out for scams. No, not everyone, who offers help during a disaster is a legitimate source of help, really. So you have to be on the lookout for scams from people who are trying to take advantage of you during these trying times. You want to protect yourself and be cautious. Be selective when you hire or accept help. Scammers could be posing as home repair contractors, charities, or other organizations involved in disaster relief efforts. There was quite a few stories that came out of the Los Angeles fires that were kind of really just people trying to take advantage of a bad situation. And it's unfortunate that it happens a lot when we go through these kind of disasters. To avoid scams, get and check references from people that you know. Ask to see state or local permits from home repair contractors and other professionals. Don't pay a contractor in full up front before they finish all the work that you hired them to do. It's very important to get and keep receipts so that you're well documented in case any funny business occurs. Don't pay for services that should be free, like, like we mentioned, FEMA and the SBA. Those inspectors don't charge in inspection and disaster assistance inspections. So make sure that you're asking for their licenses and identification because services from those organizations are free. HUD approved housing counseling agencies provide free or low cost assistance. Any organization that's going to charge you an astronomical amount of money could be an organization that is more than likely not the type of organization that you want to work with. Here's some more tips to avoid a scam. Research organizations you're not familiar with. You can ask for local references. You can also read about other people's experiences if they have a company website, for example, or check a rating review system like Angie's List or something like that to see if they're reputable, or even search the business on Google Maps and see if there's any reviews left on Google, for example. Protect your information. Avoid sharing your SSN, your social security number. Don't share your bank account information or other personal information. Someone asks you to share that information. And you have to ask yourself, why do they need this information? How are they going to use it? Make sure that you're protecting yourself and not giving it to anyone, right? Always make sure that your personal financial information is in a safe place. We kind of already talked about that. Monitor your credit reports, pull that free credit report, make sure that no one is taking advantage of you, your identity, and opening credit uh, in your name. We want to make sure that all the credit that's listed on your credit report is yours and yours alone. Read scam alerts and report scams. You can visit the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. Their website maintains a list, a running list of scams that pop up of people reporting scams. So you can go to consumer.ftc.gov and then search scam alerts to go to the FTC website to check out what scams are happening right now. On page 15 of the participant guide, we have this try it scenario with Phyllis. And in Phyllis's circumstance here in this narrative, you can check it out after the workshop. This is a scenario that will kind of help you readily, not readily is the wrong word, kind of help you get more familiar with the ability of spotting red flags. Phyllis just bought her home. The roof was damaged. It happened in a recent storm that was declared a disaster. And then what happens? Someone rings her doorbell, who's a contractor that says that they can repair the damage. Um, anyhow, check this out after the workshop. It could be useful uh, checklist to figure out, am I being taken advantage of in this situation? Here's some things you can do to adjust your financial picture so that it reflects like post-disaster reality. Of course, it's kind of taking the time to reflect and have the ability to grieve, I guess, to know that reality is a lot different now. Um, Financial preparations before the disaster, your financial situation is going to be very different after the disaster. Review your household's spending and savings plan and make adjustments if necessary as you're recovering from the disaster. And really, despite the disaster, you probably want to relook at your budget ever so often to make sure that if there's any tweaks that need to be made, if you're overspending or not saving enough or things like that. Contact your lenders and work with them if you're having difficulty paying your bills on time after the disaster. Contact your financial institutions and ask if they have any programs or initiatives that can help support disaster recovery. Get, and I know this is probably like the fourth time I've said it, I'm sorry, but pull that free credit report to make sure that everything on there is yours. And then it's probably important then after that, since this is kind of the unfortunate reality that we're in now, it might be a good idea to set new goals and make a new plan um, that's kind of more realistic now that we're in the recovery mode, so that we can make sure that we're able to reach our goals on time. Yeah, so like I said, this one was kind of a fast topic. That brings us to the close and the close for our workshop. But the key takeaway from section two is developing an initial plan can help you recover financially from a disaster, and then to make sure that you're watching out for scams. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to help out. But yeah, this is it really sucks to go through something like this
Yeah.
only to be taken advantage of, right?
It's been happening a lot. I know last year, like you said, last year during the
Yeah,
FEMA fires, like people really just took advantage of the opportunity and there's just a lot of fraud going on. I hope that they had really good, implementation processes to kind of prevent that from happening, but I'm sure.
right. Oh, and another thing too, like for the purposes of our topic tonight, we talked about like fraud. One of the other things too to watch out for, and that's why we need to kind of do a good job of shopping around. I was reading stuff that after the recovery, there was businesses that were legit businesses that were charging more than they usually did as a result of the disaster.
Oh no.
So that's like legal fraud-ish. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
It,
it blurs the lines.
yeah, like a gray area.
It's a gray area. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, be safe out there, guys. I'm gonna send two more links actually. Hold on. Let's see. I sent Salvation Army and Red Cross. Those are good ones
Nice.
too. Yeah. So if you guys ever do need help with any, God forbid, any type of disaster, you guys at least know where to go. And of course, this SBA for small businesses.
Hmm.
Alrighty, Tom. Well, thank you so much, sir. I'll
Yep.
catch you
Thank you,
next
Lisa.
time.
All
All
right.
right.
Have a good
Have
night.
you too. Bye.
Bye.